100 Reasons You Won't Believe the High School Loser Who Became a Millionaire Revealed. Jimmy Thompson stood behind the grill at the local diner, the sizzle of burgers drowned out by his reverberating thoughts. A small Midwestern town, where ambition felt like a dirty word and dreams were left to wilt in the gray sky, held him captive. He felt like a ghost, floating through a life shadowed by taunts from jocks and indifference from teachers. 17 and burdened, each day he wore the armor of invisibility, hoping it would shield him from the world's cruel jabs. With an absent father and a mother's illness wrapping around him like a tightening noose, his heart raced with a haunting question: would he ever escape the disappointment? Then, Ms. Robinson walked in, her presence as warm as a summer afternoon. She had been his favorite teacher, the one who actually cared. The very sight of her sparked something in him, a flicker of hope buried deep within the ruins of his aspirations. "You should join my community entrepreneurship class," she said, voice firm yet inviting. Jimmy's gut twisted, he wanted to laugh at her optimism. Why would anyone believe in a nobody like him? Yet, there it was, a flicker of something intrinsically human. She saw him. He was just about to brush her off when the words hung in the air, asking if he had the courage to accept, or was he destined to wallow in despair once again. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Slowly, Jimmy found himself at the classes, hoping to uplift his family from their suffocating reality. Surrounded by driven individuals, he felt like an imposter, a boy trying to play a man's game. Each lesson stirred something within him, battling the heaviness gripping his dreams. But just as sunlight pierced the darkness, his mind swayed heavily between excitement and dread. Here he was, learning the ins and outs of business while back at school, the familiar voices ripped through his confidence. What if they were right? What if he was still just the same invisible boy, unworthy of even the faintest flicker of hope? And more chaos ensued, as he uncovered the abandoned workshop once owned by his grandfather, a space echoing with forgotten dreams. The possibilities danced before him, yet the nagging echoes of laughter followed him like a dark cloud. Could he really transform this wreck into something meaningful, or was it simply a corporate version of rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic? The storm of self-doubt howled around him, and with every step he took, betrayal loomed like a thunderhead on the horizon. As his heart raced with conflicting emotions, the chatter of the community, once so distant, now felt immediate and unrelenting. Can he truly rise from being the underdog to claiming any space of significance? As he stood before a gathering, the weight of their gazes wrapped around him like chains. Would he take the leap, or collapse beneath the pressure? Jimmy sensed the pull of fate bearing down, uncertain if he could silence the voices taunting him or transform his unwillingness into strength. The light of hope flickered, but it still burned bright enough to fight for, even when standing on the edge of absolute despair. Each class session pulled Jimmy deeper into a current he hadn't anticipated. It was both exhilarating and terrifying. The entrepreneurial concepts began to intertwine with an internal understanding of his own worth, unraveling the tightly wound fears that had long suffocated his aspirations. Ms. Robinson's lessons gradually shifted from theoretical discussions to raw explorations of self-worth enforced by entrepreneurship. Yet, amid this awakening, the voices of doubt from school still echoed violently in his mind, creating a cacophony that distorted the hope rising within him. When the class was assigned a group project, Jimmy felt an immediate dent in his emerging confidence. It was one thing to sit in a classroom and absorb information, but another entirely to engage in collaborative creation. Each pairing of strong, confident students underscored the fear of being sidetracked, of being an anchor rather than a sail. He hesitated at the door, his hand gripping the frame for support, paralyzed by the looming possibility of rejection. "Hey, you're Jimmy, right?" A voice pulled him back from the threshold. It was Alex, a fellow student with a reputation for turning ideas into successful ventures. Jimmy recognized him as the very embodiment of what he longed to be. Alex's sunny disposition contrasted sharply with the turmoil bubbling within Jimmy. "Wanna join our group?" The invitation felt like a lifeline and a danger all at once. Jimmy hesitated briefly, fearing the judgment of peers he had come to expect. Would he contribute meaningfully? He wanted to say yes, to prove that he could be more than overweight shadows cast by others. "Sure," he mustered, his voice barely a whisper, though he felt an unexpected spark of defiance. Days turned into weeks, and the project began to take shape, requiring input from everyone involved. Jimmy's tasks oscillated between minutes of brilliance and bouts of paralyzing fear. On one hand, he brought innovative ideas about local product sourcing that excited the group. On the other, during moments of vulnerability, insecurity crept in, urging him to believe that he was merely occupying space. The struggle wore on him, yet he noticed something intriguing: those around him didn't seem to share his doubts. They encouraged his contributions, celebrated small victories, and slowly began to create a new narrative for him within their collaborative effort that he found an odd comfort in unleashing his grandfather's workshop at the end of some days. The dusty space, littered with memories and remnants of time forgotten, held an undeniable allure. It was a canvas waiting to be transformed. Each visit fueled a desire, yet conflict churned within him. Could he truly make something of that decay, or did it reflect his own disintegrated dreams? One afternoon, while sifting through old tools, he stumbled upon a PowerPoint from his grandfather's time, a blueprint for a local repair business they had attempted. A tremor of recognition struck him. Within those faded slides lay the unacknowledged potential of a forgotten dream. Jimmy's fingers danced over the edges, a strange kind of ownership stirring within him. Maybe it was time to resurrect the past, allowing its essence to propel him forward rather than imprison him in nostalgia. Back in class, he unfurled a slice of that vision, galvanizing his group. "What if we base our project on reviving the local workshop culture?" he suggested, his heart hammering at the prospect of vulnerability. The blank stares that met him felt like an invitation to battle his insecurities. Could they see him as more than the high school loser? "This is good, Jimmy." Alex cheered, and the rest of the group nodded enthusiastically. As they built on the idea, Jimmy tasted something new: empowerment. For every ounce of self-doubt that came raging back, he replaced it with a flash of inspiration. But shadows still loomed behind him as he felt the heaviness creep in. What would happen when the project presentation approached? Would the inevitable judgment tear down this fragile newfound identity he had dared to build? Standing at the intersection of fear and determination, he swallowed hard and prepared to confront what lay ahead. The moment of truth lingered on the horizon, and he could only hope the scaffolding he was erecting would withstand the storm. The countdown to the presentation began, each tick of the clock amplifying the tumult within Jimmy. He immersed himself in preparations, meticulously combing through every detail of their project. While his group embraced optimism, Jimmy felt as if he were balancing on a precipice, the swirling doubts beneath him whispering their familiar refrain. Focus on the strengths, he told himself, practicing breathing techniques from an article he read. Yet, the more he focused on his contributions to the project, the tighter the grip of insecurity became. He spent late nights drafting slides, imagining how each point would resonate with their peers. But every time he pictured standing before an audience, a chilled shadow swatted away the warmth of his inspiration. "Remember, we'll rehearse tomorrow," Alex reminded him after another late afternoon meeting. Jimmy managed a nod, but the lingering anxiety gnawed at his stomach. As the rehearsal day dawned, he arrived with a mix of determination and dread. His group assembled in a forgotten corner of the school library, a pocket of solace amid the chaos. With every presentation, Jimmy felt the engulfing tide rising. It was the pivotal moment that could either cement his emerging identity or drown it. "Okay, let us run through it," Alex said, taking charge. One by one, the group members spoke with clarity and engagement. Seeing their confidence only intensified Jimmy's internal tempest. When it was finally his turn, he stood up, heart racing, palms clammy. So we thought a lot about," he started, fumbling over his words, feeling the weight of every gaze. But as he glanced at Alex's eyes, encouraging and unwavering, something shifted inside him. Right. So, here's the thing. He took a deep breath, pushing back the fear. This isn't just about bringing back workshops, it's about creating spaces where people can connect, learn, and cultivate their skills. We can tap into the essence of our community. Each word gained momentum, steadily lifting him from the quicksand of his insecurities. The group listened, faces brightening with understanding. That flicker of recognition bolstered Jimmy, pushing him to venture further. The tools we can restore are more than just for repairs, they symbolize resilience. We're not just reviving an old business, we're reviving the spirit of innovation and the value of craftsmanship that seems to dissolve in our culture. A silence settled after his presentation, and Jimmy's blood ran cold, the adrenaline surging. Had he gone too far? Would they see it as the absurdity of a dreamer? That's brilliant. Came a voice from their group, followed by another enthusiastic nod from someone else. The tension in the air shifted, and he noticed how his peers leaned in, captivated. Despite the exhilarating moment, a significant truth wormed its way back to him. Could a simple workshop truly transform lives? Would people engage with a project rooted in nostalgia, or would it be shunned as mere folly? I want this to work, he confessed, staring at his group. I'm terrified of failing. What if? Stop, Alex cut in gently, we won't fail. You've got a great vision here, Jimmy. Let us build on it. The shared assurance of his peers provided a newfound strength. It was as if he'd eluded the overpowering tide for just a moment. He left the rehearsal invigorated, yet questions still loomed. What inner barriers needed dismantling? In the weeks that followed, he tailored their project narrative, spiraling deeper into research, networking with artisans, and paving new connections with local business owners. The bated breath of the presentation day morphed into a powerful desire to forge his own identity. He wanted to be the voice that elevated forgotten skills not just in class, but beyond the walls that had confined him for so long. As the day approached, the clock whispered urgency, and in an unforeseen twist of fate, Jimmy received a message from an unexpected source, the owner of a local workshop expressing interest in collaborating on their project. He paused, heart racing anew, contemplating that. With this opportunity, his moment of truth was approaching in more ways than one. The intersection of his fears and aspirations loomed closer, and a singular thought ignited: the time had come to face himself, not just the presentation, but the possibilities beyond it. The message illuminated his phone screen, words blurring as adrenaline sparked through him. Jimmy read it again, soaking in the implication. The owner of the workshop, a seasoned craftsman named Mr. Voss, sought him out, expressing enthusiasm for collaboration. This was a pivotal moment. For the first time, Jimmy felt a ripple of opportunity surging within him. He recalled how Mr. Voss's workshop symbolized what he aspired to achieve: a blend of heritage and innovation. How could he leverage this partnership not just for their project, but for his own growth? As the day unfolded, he wrestled with the decision. Should he seek out Mr. Voss? The prospect filled him with electric anticipation but also dread. What if the craftsman didn't see his vision? What if he misrepresented the project, exposing his vulnerabilities again? The specter of failure loomed, yet curiosity clawed at him. This could broaden his understanding and add authenticity to their project, possibly transforming his fears into a foundation for success. Jimmy, you ready? Alex's voice jolted him from his thoughts. The energy around him vibrated with a mixture of urgency and excitement. He focused on Alex, who wore a bright enthusiasm. Yeah, actually, I'm thinking of reaching out to Mr. Voss. I want to have a conversation about our project. His insights could really elevate what we're trying to do. Absolutely. That's bold. If anyone can relate to revival of lost skills, it's him. Just remember to emphasize your vision, Alex replied, encouraging him further. After their meeting, Jimmy stood in front of his laptop, hesitating. The URL flashed like an anxious heartbeat, spiraling into his mind. He typed the message, each word feeling like the weight of a promise. Inviting the owner of the workshop into his burgeoning idea was akin to opening a door that had long been shut. Yet, the prospect of potential rejection gnawed at him. What if he blew his chance at the only connection he had to someone in the field? Trying to shake off the negativity, he centered his thoughts. He recalled the supportive nods from his group after their rehearsal. This isn't just about fear. It's about growth, he murmured. Finally, with resolve, he clicked send and felt a jolt of exhilaration mixed with apprehension. Days passed, and the presentation loomed near, but the looming dread transformed into palpable anticipation as he awaited Mr. Voss's reply. Jimmy knew he was preparing to step further into uncharted waters, extending beyond classroom ambivalence to exploring real-world implications of their initiative. While he delved deeper into their project narrative, gathering stories from local artisans and writing drafts, his mind wandered back to his relationship with failure. It had shadowed him, a constant reminder that his worth was under scrutiny. Yet, every new connection he forged chipped away at that fear. Each conversation with prominent figures shaped his understanding of the craft, reigniting the spark of belief deep within him. Then, unexpectedly, he received a response from Mr. Voss. His heart raced as he noticed there was an invitation to meet in person. This chance would either undermine or elevate his path not just for this project but for who he was evolving into. As he prepared for their meeting, thoughts whirled. Would he articulate his vision clearly? What if Mr. Voss questioned his intentions? One thing loomed ever clearer: he was on the brink of confronting his own self-doubt. The workshop held the key to insights he desperately sought. With a deep breath, he resolved to approach this encounter with openness, determined to absorb whatever wisdom Mr. Voss might share. With moments ticking by, his phone buzzed again, a reminder of the presentation in 2 days. He sat quietly, reflecting what awaited him at that workshop. What lessons lay beyond a simple crafting project? Little did he know, the answers he sought would challenge him far beyond the walls of his high school. And deep within, a voice whispered possibilities. The true journey was only just beginning. Jimmy arrived at Mr. Voss's workshop, his pulse quickening with each step toward the heavy wooden door. The exterior bore marks of age-faded paint and cracks that hinted at years of craftsmanship. It resonated with the very soul of traditional artistry, a stark contrast to the polished, sterile classrooms he had grown accustomed to. He hesitated, taking a moment to breathe in the scent of wood shavings and varnish that permeated the air, remnants of a legacy being crafted just beyond that door. As he pushed the door open, the soft creak felt like a silent welcome. Inside, tools hung on the walls like trophies: hammers, chisels, and various implements of creation. Each item bore scars of countless projects, a testament to years of labor and, more importantly, evolution. Mr. Voss stood in the center, surrounded by partial works in progress, his silver hair catching the light as he worked meticulously on a piece of furniture. "Hey there. You must be Jimmy," Mr. Voss greeted, his voice warm yet authoritative. There was a gravitas in his tone, a quiet confidence that Jimmy found grounding. "Yes, that's me. Thank you for meeting with me," Jimmy replied, his voice trembling slightly. "Of course. I'm looking forward to discussing what you have in mind." Mr. Voss gestured for Jimmy to take a seat at a rustic workbench, laden with tools. The welcoming atmosphere seemed to draw him in, yet he felt butterflies churning in his stomach. As they sat across from each other, Jimmy knew this was more than just a professional meeting. It was an opportunity for self-discovery, a leap into the unknown that could profoundly shape his path. Still, self-doubt gripped him. Would Mr. Voss validate his ideas or dismiss them outright? "Tell me about your project," Mr. Voss prompted, eyes focused intently on him, as if encouraging him to strip away the layers of uncertainty. Taking a deep breath, Jimmy began to outline his vision. He spoke about the blend of traditional craftsmanship and modern design, linking it to his desire to foster appreciation for local artisans. Even as he shared, doubts surfaced. Was his passion enough to impress someone with years of experience? Would he falter in expressing complex ideas? But as Mr. Voss listened, nodding occasionally, a flicker of confidence sparked within him. Slowly, he recognized something profound. His passion wasn't just a shield, it could also be his sword. The more he spoke, the more he realized that this wasn't solely about impressing Mr. Voss, it was about sharing a piece of himself. "I truly believe we can create something meaningful here," Jimmy concluded, feeling exhilarated despite the remnants of anxiety. His heart raced not out of fear, but from the thrill of sharing his vision that Mr. Voss leaned back, a contemplative smile crossing his face. "You have a distinctive perspective, Jimmy. Merging the old with the new is exactly what we need in today's craft culture. I sense a lot of potential in your ideas." A wave of relief crashed over Jimmy. He hadn't just come here to validate his thoughts, he had sparked a genuine connection. The conversation opened new pathways, revealing a depth of shared insights and possibilities, yet, as they delved deeper into specifics, Jimmy felt a dynamic shift. He could feel Mr. Voss pushing him, questioning not just the project but the very foundations of his beliefs. "What do you envision when you think of success? Is it merely about recognition or something more profound?" Those questions swirled in his mind long after their discussion. Success was more than accolades, it was about authenticity, about building a legacy that mattered. Jimmy wrestled with the realization that this journey wasn't just about the project, it was entwined with crafting his own identity. As he left the workshop, renewed determination flooded through him. The encounter had illuminated paths he hadn't dared to explore. The insights gained were invaluable, but they also left him with new questions about his motives, desires, and fears. And as he stood outside the workshop, the weight of his project now shimmered with purpose. Yet, somewhere in the back of his mind loomed an unsettling thought: what if this was merely the beginning of unraveling a truth about himself that he had long been afraid to confront? He glanced back at the workshop, feeling the exhilaration of possibility surge within him. The real challenge was just unfolding, and a new chapter awaited him. Would he dare to uncover the depths of his ambition and confront who he could truly become? The next morning, sunlight streamed through the slats of Jimmy's window, splashing warmth into the cold corners of his small studio apartment. He squinted against the bright rays, tangled in sheets yet aware that the day beckoned with challenges waiting to be faced. As he swung his legs over the edge of the bed, he felt an unexpected urge to take command of his ambition, to seize the potential that had recently sparked within him. His discussion with Mr. Voss echoed in his mind, a relentless reminder of the unearthed questions swirling through his consciousness. He grabbed a notebook, pages worn yet filled with fleeting thoughts and sketches from previous days. As he flipped through, he recognized the disparate bits of ideas jostling for attention, but there was no coherence, a muddled representation of his scattered thoughts. With a determined grunt, he began to draft a structure for his project, head down, pen racing across the paper. What started as confusion morphed into an outline, each bullet point transforming into a stepping stone. For the first time, he visualized a path, a foundation to build upon, a testament to growth beyond mere ambition. It was a burgeoning plan. Hours slipped by as he immersed himself in the work, driven by an adrenaline-fueled desire to turn his vision into reality. Ideas flourished, each one feeding off the excitement ignited by Mr. Voss's encouragement. Yet amidst the enthusiasm, uncertainty crept in, whispering doubts about what awaited him at the finish line. Would those who first knew him as the high school loser truly accept the metamorphosis he was striving to embody? The clock struck midday, and hunger nudged him from his fervor. As he wandered into the tiny kitchen to prepare a meal, the silence pressed in on him. Without realizing it, thoughts began to spiral, a predictable downward gaze into his past failures and missteps. Each echoing memory was like a chain anchoring him to a former self. "What if I fail?" he murmured, stirring pot noodles absent-mindedly. The voice of his adolescent self crept back, casting a shadow over his burgeoning self-belief. It was a tricky notion, how the past held sway over what felt possible now. Jimmy leaned against the counter, breathing deeply in an effort to wrestle the doubts aside. He reached for his notebook and flipped to his rough outline, a challenging reminder of the potential he had envisioned. With a spark of determination, he picked up his pen again and wrote, "I am not defined by my past, I am the architect of my future." This vivid proclamation struck a chord, igniting a wave of fierce resolve within him. He could choose to confront the voices, forge a path that defied expectations, and craft an identity rooted in resilience and creativity rather than fear. Accepting that challenge meant not only embracing who he wished to be but also laying bare the very concept of success he had once thought elusive. As dusk began to fall, Jimmy returned to Mr. Voss's workshop. There was urgency in his steps. He needed to share not just his ideas but the transformed perspective he now carried. Arriving at the threshold, a twinge of fear bubbled to the surface, but he reaffirmed his resolve. This needed to happen. The door creaked open, revealing Mr. Voss, who was deep in thought over a workbench. As their eyes met, Jimmy felt a profound sense of purpose welling up within him. This time, he was prepared to confront the foundations of his beliefs, ready to face whatever doubts still lingered in the shadows, but as he started to speak, Mr. Voss's expression changed slightly. "I'm glad you're back, Jimmy. I have something important to discuss with you as well, something that may change everything." An inexplicable tension crackled in the air as Jimmy grappled with anticipation. What revelations awaited him? Jimmy stood at the threshold, heart racing as possibilities flooded his mind. His thoughts swirled in chaos. What could possibly be so pivotal that would change his path? "Just breathe," he muttered under his breath, grounding himself in the moment. Voss motioned for him to sit. The workshop, a collage of tools and half-finished projects, started to feel daunting instead of inspiring. It was as if the tools themselves were judging his next move. He considered the weight of his ideas, wrestling with the fear that his voice might falter at the moment of truth. "As I said," Mr. Voss began, breaking the silence that felt oppressive. "I've been thinking about mentorship, about what it truly means. I have an opportunity for you, Jimmy. A chance to showcase your project to a broader audience. An exhibition, if you will. But it's not just about exposure, it's also a trial by fire." A lump formed in Jimmy's throat. This was not merely an assignment, it was a challenge that could elevate him or expose the fissures in his newfound confidence. "Exhibition? You think I'm ready for that?" Mr. Voss leaned back, gaze unwavering. "I wouldn't have offered it if I didn't believe in your potential. But it will push you, Jimmy. The only way to avoid being defined by the past is to confront it head-on. Can you do that?" Those words hung in the air like an incantation. With each beat of his heart, Jimmy felt pressure mix with elation. He envisioned the crowd, their faces expecting brilliance, their eyes searching for a glimpse of the loser they once knew. Could he rise to the occasion, or would he crumble under the weight of their expectations? "What if they don't believe in me?" The thought escaped before he could catch it, vulnerability surging to the surface. "Then you show them," Mr. Voss straightened, voice steady. "You present your work with conviction and demonstrate the growth you fought for. You connect with them not merely as a success story, but as someone who has walked the valleys of self-doubt. That authenticity can resonate more than any polished facade." Jimmy nodded, the embers of determination igniting within him. Perhaps this wasn't just an exhibition but an opportunity to reclaim his narrative, to rewrite perceptions, a chance to redefine not just his project but himself. "What's the first step?" he asked, hunger for direction etching determination across his features. "Their essay workshop tomorrow," Mr. Voss replied, sliding a flyer across the table. "Focus on refining your project and storytelling. It's crucial to connect emotionally with your audience. You'll be sharing your process, not just the end result." The prospect of sharing his process was both exhilarating and terrifying. What if I fail to convey it? Failure only matters if you stop trying. Each time you learn from your struggles, you grow. Allow yourself to be vulnerable in those moments, you find real connection. The room felt charged with newfound energy, pushing Jimmy to confront the tangled cords of fear and excitement spiraling within him. A dilemma arose: would he lean into the potential for rejection or embrace the risk of success? "Okay," he finally said, heart fluttering with a mix of anticipation and dread. "I'll commit to this." As he left the workshop, doubts loomed like dark clouds, but Jimmy clutched the flyer, a beacon of hope. Each step home echoed his resolve: he would cultivate his voice, channel his fears, and hopefully, by confronting his past, he could forge an unbreakable future. Tonight, he would write not just about his project but about himself, a narrative steeped in resilience, an identity stripped bare. In doing so, perhaps he would confront the very foundation of who he was, yet, beneath the surface, a new tension began to bubble. What if his transformation was not the only one at stake? What secrets would the workshop unravel? What buried truths would come unearthed when he spoke not just of triumph but of tribulation? As night descended upon his small apartment, Jimmy sat at his cluttered desk, the faint glow of a single lamp illuminating pages filled with hasty notes. The invitation to present at the workshop loomed larger than life, igniting both excitement and an unsettling apprehension within him. Each stroke of his pen felt like a delicate balance between clarity and confusion, as he wrestled with his story's essence. That he began with the facts, what his project was, how it functioned, and the technical intricacies behind it. But with each line, he felt something crucial was missing. It's not enough to just share the outcome, he thought, frustration building. He needed to delve deeper. He needed to show not just what he created but where he had come from. The melting pot of past failures and fleeting victories, they were at the heart of his narrative. He recalled the moments that had shaped him, the whispers of doubt that clung to his adolescence, the friends who had turned their backs, and the sharp stings of rejection that echoed in his mind. Yet, woven through those memories was a resilience he had begun to recognize. It was a story of evolution, and he was both its author and its protagonist. Can I be both honest and compelling? He mused aloud, his voice echoing against the walls as silhouettes of past struggles danced before him. The better question was, am I willing to show them all the messy parts? The hesitance stung like a cold wind. Vulnerability was terrifying, but perhaps it was the very catalyst he needed. Each memory he captured on paper pulled him away from self-pity and toward a raw authenticity. He began outlining his journey, how he stumbled into his passion, the people along the way who had encouraged, challenged, and shaped him. This was about connection, he understood. It wasn't merely his success but an invitation for others to see the potential that lay in struggle. Hours slipped by unnoticed as he molded his narrative. He crafted it not to obfuscate his past but to celebrate his growth. He wrote about nights spent in solitude, battling the demons of uncertainty, and the transformative moments that fortified his resolve. Each revelation deepened his sense of purpose. A feeling of warmth began to fill the hollow spaces in his heart, pushing aside the lingering shadows of doubt. He set his pen down, reviewing his work with a sharpened eye. The document now depicted more than just a project, it captured a rebirth, a chance to redefine who he was to others and, more importantly, to himself. This was not merely an exhibition, it would be a reckoning. As the clock ticked towards midnight, Jimmy felt an exhilarating wave of clarity wash over him. Not only was he preparing to showcase his project to the world, but he was also preparing to stand resolute in front of his past. He had a newfound mission, to inspire those lost in the throes of doubt with the story of his journey. He glanced back at the flyer Mr. Voss had given him one last time. It now seemed less like an intimidating invitation and more like a chance to share not only data and figures but the very fabric of a human experience. Yet, beneath this newfound resolve lay the ominous weight of reality. What would the audience think? Would they see him for who he truly was, a work in progress, or would they, like before, judge him solely on past labels? Determined yet uncertain, he closed his notebook, the climax to his personal conflict brewing within him. The workshop beckoned with the promise of self-discovery, yet a deeper question lingered: was he ready to expose the depths of his journey, scars and all? Tomorrow would test everything he had painstakingly unearthed. How could he confront not only the expectations of others, but the lingering doubts inside him? A storm of thoughts roared in his mind as he wrestled with his growing fears. If his transformation were to succeed, he had to be willing to face the past that haunted him. But did he have the strength to reveal his true self? The moment when everything would collide was drawing near, and there was no turning back now. The sun rose harshly the next morning, slicing through the heavy curtains and casting stripes of light across Jimmy's cluttered floor. Staring out the window, he felt the reality of the day weigh down on him like an anchor. He had committed to sharing his story, a decision that felt both liberating and terrifying. The tension that had been building in him was now palpable, threatening to erupt. He moved through his routine almost mechanically, splashing cold water on his face, the chill sending jolts through his system. The lingering doubts seeped into each moment, they twisted themselves around every mundane task. Yet, something flickered inside him, a quiet voice urging him forward. He was ready, he reminded himself. This was not just about the project, but about showcasing the personal metamorphosis that had led him here. As he dressed, the reflection in the mirror seemed foreign. Years of self-doubt and labels clung to him like ghosts. Today is different, he declared softly, straightening his shoulders. Instead of viewing himself through a lens of failure, he needed to witness the evolution, an artist revealing their work after hours spent in solitude. That he equipped himself not just with his notes, but with a small resonant piece of paper. A quote from an old mentor crept into his thoughts: vulnerability is strength. Repeating those words like a mantra, he grappled with their weight. An unexpected clarity emerged. This was not about proving his worth to others but rather embracing every layer of his journey, flaws and triumphs alike. Navigating through the city towards the workshop felt like walking a tightrope. The adrenaline surged through his veins, a cocktail of excitement and dread. Images of the audience evaluating him flashed through his mind, judgments, critical glances, comparisons. He felt the familiar grip of inadequacy clawing at him. But he pushed against it, determined not to retreat into his old habits. Arriving at the venue, he stepped into the gathering space, his senses assaulted by the buzz of conversations, laughter, and the rushing sound of footsteps. Each sound echoed his inner thoughts, a cacophony of potential scrutiny. Yet, he was firm in one belief: he had something valuable to offer. As he observed the crowd, he noticed individuals similar to his past self, faces punctuated by uncertainty and awkwardness. They were all here for different reasons, searching for inspiration, guidance, or perhaps validation. That was when a realization hit him: he was not alone. In this myriad of souls, his story could be a bridge to connect and kindle resilience in even just one person. On stage, he was struck by a wave of nostalgia. Recollections flashed of past humiliations, echoes of laughter that had once felt like daggers. Yet now, as he rose to speak, he felt fortified by the truth of his narrative. He adjusted the mic, feeling its cool metal against his hand, grounding him. "I was once the kid who sat at the back of the class," he began, each word an anchor reversing the current of years of self-doubt. He spoke not merely of the data and figures, but of the struggle behind the scenes, nights filled with uncertainty, the searing fear of failure, and the glimmers of hope that had illuminated his path. As he reached deeper into his past, he sensed the audience lean in, hanging on to every word. For the first time, opening up felt like an act of defiance against the voices that had once whispered doubt. The high school loser who had now reached a crossroads, rising despite the odds. But just as he gathered momentum, his eyes caught a familiar face in the crowd, one that twisted the growing wave of confidence into a jarring reminder of his past. A flicker of fear ignited in his gut as he wondered, what would they think? His thoughts began to spiral as silence enveloped him, the workshop participants waiting. Had he truly been compelling? Would his confession resonate, or reinforce the very labels he sought to escape? The crowd's anticipation felt suffocating, pulling at the threads of his newfound conviction. In that defining moment, he had a choice: would he retreat into the safety of silence or push forward into the light of vulnerability? With a deep breath, he prepared to confront both the audience and the ghosts of his past. Today would reveal whether authenticity was strong enough to unfurl hidden potential. The time had come to face not just others, but himself. As Jimmy concluded his presentation, an electrifying silence enveloped the room. For a fleeting moment, time stood still, and every pair of eyes seemed to penetrate through the facade he'd built over the years. Then, as if a dam had broken, applause erupted, boisterous and affirming. People stood, clapping enthusiastically, and in that moment, all the self-doubt that had ever haunted him seemed to dissolve into thin air. He felt buoyed, as if the weight of his past had transformed into a buoy of buoyancy. The very audience he had feared would mock him now stood in solidarity with his journey. The transition from being the invisible boy to owning the stage felt monumental. Everything he had endured, the whispers, the rejection, the fears, all contributed to this moment of validation. Days turned into weeks after that exhibition. The buzz from the event didn't merely fade, it ignited a cascade of opportunities. Local artisans and business owners reached out, ready to collaborate. Mr. Voss, impressed by Jimmy's initiative and commanding presence, invited him to help lead workshops on entrepreneurship for others in the community. His skills, once buried beneath layers of insecurity, began to shine brighter with each interaction. With every passing engagement, his confidence solidified. He could steer conversations, weave narratives, and inspire interest in a wavering audience. Gone was the uncertain boy who avoided eye contact. Now stood a young man who relished the spark of curiosity he ignited in others. His grandmother's fears of him being a nobody faded alongside his past insecurities. Instead, she beamed with pride as she witnessed his transformation. One sunny afternoon, as he sat within the revitalized workshop now bustling with creativity and collaboration with local entrepreneurs, he paused to reflect on his journey. His fingers traced the rough wooden table, not unlike the one his grandfather had used, feeling the contours of a hard-won legacy. He could hear laughter mixing with the sounds of hammers and drills, a symphony of aspiration and renewed purpose. The workshop was no longer just a building filled with forgotten tools, it was a living testament to revival, innovation, and the dreams he had chosen to reclaim. An email notification jarred him from his reverie. It was an invitation to speak at a youth conference about empowerment through entrepreneurship, a chance to share his story on a national platform. His heart thumped in disbelief. The boy everyone deemed a high school loser had become an inspirational figure. His initial reaction was to feel overwhelmed by trepidation, thinking of the fear of judgment that once plagued him. But as the seconds passed, that feeling morphed into exhilaration. The shadows of anxiety could no longer impede the light of his progress. He envisioned the sea of faces eager to learn, just as he had once yearned for guidance. He wanted to be that beacon for others, to assure them that their past does not define their future. Jimmy accepted the invitation with conviction, understanding now that his story was not only for himself, but for those who may find hope in the journey he had traversed. All the challenges he had faced became stepping stones beneath his feet, pushing him forward rather than holding him back. With a resolute heart, he smiled. He had not only conquered the loud whispers of doubt within but had also transformed them into a powerful narrative of resilience. With each step forward, he solidified his position not as a one-hit wonder or a fleeting moment of glory but as an established voice, destined to inspire generations. The culmination of his growth was no longer about the applause, but the deeper fulfillment found in connecting with others, helping pave a path for those who felt overlooked. He understood that success was about crafting a meaningful legacy, born from authenticity and fueled by the stories of transformation within us all. Reclaiming his narrative marked the beginning of untold stories yet to be shared. His journey would continue, but this time, it would be grounded in truth, purpose, and unwavering belief. You need to subscribe now to ensure you don't miss our next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Comment your thoughts and theories about Jimmy's journey, because your insights truly matter. And don't wait even one more second to share this inspiring conclusion with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformational story.